Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. The Trump administration is holding more than 150 migrant detainees at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. A dozen military flights carrying migrants have landed there since President Trump's return to office. Both high-threat and low-risk detainees are now in an immigration detention center at the U.S. Naval Base there. Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us now. Camilo, talk to us about what Guantanamo has become.
Sure.
And what is the difference in the treatment of these undocumented migrants and those who were there long-standing?
Critical questions, Major. President Trump instructed officials to essentially dramatically expand migrant holding capacity at the U.S. Naval Base in Guantanamo Bay. Historically, under Republican and Democratic presidents alike, the U.S. has detained some migrants there, but these have been asylum seekers intercepted at sea, like Haitian and Cuban refugees who are undergoing screenings by U.S. asylum officers to be resettled in third countries like Australia or Canada, not people arrested in the interior of the country and then sent to Cuba. Now, that is what is happening as we speak. The U.S. has sent about a dozen military flights to Guantanamo Bay with about 150 migrant detainees. And despite what the president has said and what officials like Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, have said, the people being sent there are not only criminals and alleged gang members, but they also include migrants who are in the country illegally, but who lack any serious criminal record or any at all. And that undermines the administration's messaging that this base would only house the worst of the worst. That's right, Major. And so all these men, we are told, are from Venezuela, and they are going to be detained there until they can be deported to Venezuela. And that is the key question, because, as you know, the government in Venezuela has rejected U.S. deportation flights for years, including under the Biden administration. So these folks could be detained there indefinitely.
What is the capacity, if it is knowable, at Guantanamo? How many more people could go there? We
don't know, but the objective by President Trump is to have sufficient detention capacity to hold as many as 30,000 people at Guantanamo Bay. That would be the largest immigration detention center created by the U.S.
Wow.
It's a lot of people.
Department of Homeland Security firings via DOJ. What's the news there?
So the Department of Homeland Security over the weekend fired more than 400 of its employees, mainly at non-immigration related agencies like the cybersecurity branch at DHS and FEMA, which of course is, responds to disasters. But 50% of the cuts affected employees at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This is the agency that administers the legal immigration system. They adjudicate requests for asylum, work permits, green cards, and U.S. citizenship. Those employees have been terminated. And we also know that the Justice Department separately has fired more than a dozen immigration judges. These are the judges who adjudicate the claims of people who are facing deportation. And it is really important to note that this comes as the immigration court system is still facing a backlog of more than 4 million pending cases. That is a historic backlog, and that could inhibit the administration in carrying out those promised mass deportations, because even if you arrest someone, Major, you still, under U.S. law, have to give that person a chance to make their case in front of a judge. And now they have fewer judges to adjudicate those claims.
And I want to talk about this a little bit more, Camilo, because I want the audience to sit with this for a second. I've covered immigration a long time, not nearly as well as you do, but for a long time. And everyone associated with this issue and the question of reform, Republican and Democrat, hard right, hard left, has said, one of the things we need to do, one of the few things they absolutely agree on, is have more of these immigration judges to handle these cases faster, to bring down that caseload that is piling up, and get some sense and sensibility to this. And what you just said is several of them were just fired.
That's right. It has been a long-standing bipartisan consensus because judges allow the government to deport people much more quickly, because they can hear those cases. And as you know, many of the migrants who are facing deportation ultimately will not qualify for asylum because the threshold, the legal threshold, is very high to qualify for humanitarian protection. But again, they need to go through the process first. And now there are fewer people in government to adjudicate those claims.
And back to the DHS firings, if I understand you correctly, so those who are at the door that might let you in are being fired.
That's right.
Those who are on the hunt for those who are here without documentation to be deported are not being affected.
That's right. But I should underscore that the two large DHS agencies overseeing the president's sweeping crackdown on illegal immigration, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, have been spared so far. So we'll see if that continues.
One last thing before we go. We've got about a minute. I keep reading headlines about the numbers of those swept up in various enforcement actions not meeting the numbers that President Trump has in mind, or the bad actors that he said were there to be found.
The problem is that this administration is now encountering the same logistical, legal, and diplomatic challenges that every single administration, Republican and Democrat, has faced on this issue. And that is that the U.S. simply does not have the immigration detention capacity, the judges, the ICE officers, the Border Patrol agents, and the officials necessary to find, detain, and adjudicate the claims of everyone who is here illegally.
And maybe there are not as many bad actors as the president's rhetoric would have suggested.
ICE has a backlog of 8 million people. Only about 600,000 of them have some criminal record.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you very much.